Alright gang, so today we have another 2v2 here. We've got Turin on the left and we've got me on the right. Both doing a double dwarf action against some Greenskins and some Bretonnians. This should be a pretty fun one. This is probably the first time that I'm actually using dwarves in multiplayer, I think. I don't know. I can't recall. I can't recall 100%. But being that we're up against a lot of heavy armor this time, I took a lot of longbeards. That's pretty much entirely what my army consists of, is longbeards, 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 longbeards. And then the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. And then longbeards. Oh no, more dwarf warriors. But still, tons of longbeards. We also have some slayers here. Oh, no, not right there. I'm sorry. The Slayers are back here. They're going to probably help me out against any of the bigger things, like any of the flying units that Bretonnia probably is going to be bringing, which I do believe they do bring. These guys are going to help out against any kind of anti-large, so that's really going to be a nice boon. And as we were talking about here, the Longbeards definitely have that AP bonus built into their profile, so they're going to be smacking apart any Black Orcs or any kind of Bretonnian heavy cavalry that we'll be dealing with. I wanted to bring the Fellowship of the Ring. I always like bringing all of Clan Angrund's many heroes, but we have Belagar Ironhammer in here. He's a pretty solid, pretty tanky hero. As I've found out from the campaign that you guys have probably seen, he can just eat everything alive. It's pretty awesome. Just a basic runesmith, and then we also have Throny Ironbrow as well, backing up my Thunderers. Turin was pretty insistent that the Thunderers are difficult to use, so I wanted to take a little extra challenge. Them being, of course, AP. I wanted to bring them in the army just to see how they play. I would have gone with Quarrelers, but I felt like the Thunderers is... they're kind of near and dear to me just because I've played with them a lot, or against them a lot in tabletop, so I wanted to kind of see how they perform in this game. They, as you'll see, they kind of held the line pretty well, and I was pretty impressed overall with their performance. But with Turin's army, we have let me bring that back up here. He's got some dwarf warriors. See, so he went with the Goblobber. I'm not being a big proponent of artillery just yet. He knew a little bit more on how to use that properly, so he took the Goblobber here, as well as a cannon. He went with not Belagar, but he went with what's his name, Angrund, I believe, right? Where is he? Yeah, there we go. Oh, Thorgrim. Thorgrim Grudgebearer on his fat chariot, just sitting there with 4 squatty dudes behind him. Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, more Longbeards. I know that he took a lot of Longbeards as well. He got the Grumbling Guard, as the same thing as me. But we're in for a pretty fun game here today. This is, again, the first time ever really playing Dwarves against a staple of mine, which is typically Bretonnians to play as. But our enemy, as far as Bretonnia goes, brought definitely some heavy air superiority with 2 Pegasus Knights. Oh, only one. I thought there was a second one. But 1 Pegasus Knight and King Leoncoeur on Bequois. And a very strong presence of Foot Squires. Not very many Battle Pilgrims, which is interesting, but I guess Foot Squires are anti-infantry and AP, so that's going to be strong against dwarves. I probably got the Lore of Life here as well, and the Grail Relic. I believe he also, yeah, so Grail Guardians and another set of Grail Guardians, yep. So he's got 2 Grail Guardians, which do magic damage, is not going to be awesome against dwarves. That's really going to be completely nullified, which is not the best choice. I probably would have gone with Questing Knights where I am, because they're just going to be a much more superior fighting force on the field, especially because they do AP. But again, Grail Guardians, magic damage, womp womp. And then of course we've got the staple of any Greenskins army, Black Orcs, just mounds of these guys. They're going to be coming in with their AP as well. I've always been really a huge fan of Black Orc units in this game, in the tabletop. They've always been really cool. Even before, like when tabletop had static boring miniatures, they've always been just like my favorite. Just to see like these masks on these guys, just armored all the way from like head to tusk, which is a weird analogy to use. But let's get this back up here. There we go. We have an Orc Shaman as well as some Trolls. The Trolls, as you can see, don't perform pretty well here, but, you know, it's to be expected. They're Trolls. Whoever likes those things. In the tabletop, they play much differently. In fact, the Trolls, they get like a whole slew of different attacks and abilities because they can stomp, and they cause a whole bunch of different damage as soon as they enter combat, and they regenerate. So way different dynamic in this game compared to the tabletop, because I would I personally would choose a crap ton of trolls because I do like that unit. But let's get this going to normal speed here and kind of see how this plays out. Turin's army already starts to bombard the Bretonnian army with some artillery right off the bat. He's got some annoying little wolf chariots coming in here, but those don't really pose much of a threat, especially because they're so far extended from his main army that they're gonna wilt and fall pretty quickly here, as you can see. And we have our Bretonnian guy coming over here and doing some flanking work, and I saw that and definitely positioned the Slayers in a better way to guard that flank. I didn't want my Thunderers to get knocked out in the first 2 minutes of play here because I really wanted to play with them. But we just kind of move up the line, start engaging. The Bretonnian army and the Orc army did a not so great movement here. The Orcs are way far back, so he's caught out of place, and it's going to allow us to basically create a hammer and anvil. That Bretonnian army is going to smash against my front line, while Turin's army flanks them to the right and quickly puts down that threat. We have the Thunderers already opening up on the Grill Guardians and doing great damage. As you know, the Thunderers need to be positioned very trickily. Trickily, is that a word? Sticking with it. But in a very kind of... Let's get up in here and see how this goes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Just look at those long beards. Imagine how much conditioner they're going to have to use on those things. As a man with a beard, I would know. I really like the Foot Squire units as well. They look really awesome, really beautiful. And I think we're about to get some action right here. Yep. His Grill Guardians and his... let's actually slow this down a bit. But the Grill Guardians and the Pegasus Knights really managed to get into my flank and charge into my Runesmith, as well as Belagar. But, as we can see here, what I had intended these Slayers to do was to keep Leoncoeur and their Pegasus Knights in check, and already those Pegasus Knights are damn near dead. Already down. And they're being buffed by the Runesmith, so they're already doing some extra damage. The Thunderers, which I thought were going to get hit pretty hard, managed to get my Thunderers managed to get engaged by Leoncoeur pretty quickly, which was obviously counterintuitive with the Slayers there, but I think that neutralizing those Pegasus Knights was a much better play because now the Slayers are coming back to come for Leoncoeur's beastly head. One thing to kind of note, I'm not sure how it really is in this, but in the tabletop, the Thunderers are actually legitimately very good in close combat. They carry shields, they carry axes, as well as their weapons. I can see here that it's not so much the case. Melee attack of 20 is not going to be doing too much impressive damage in a melee sense. Let's see how that front line is doing. We have those Orc Boar Boys and their Grill Guardians have now flanked my Longbeards, the Grumbling Guard, which is pretty dangerous. I hadn't noticed that at the time because I was focusing a lot more on the Thunderers being engaged. But we'll see how that kind of pans out. The Fane, with the Damsel over here, is in the thick of it with my Longbeards, which are just about to break, and that's never ever good. But Turin's army has really started to, like I was saying, give it to that flank, and is already starting to buckle some of their Foot Squires, and is already marching on to the Black Orcs to hold that line. Gungar Ironhide coming in here pretty hot and heavy. Not my favorite Orc unit, but he's there nonetheless. But like I was saying, those Slayers help neutralize those Pegasus Knights to the point where they're no longer much of a threat. Kind of just floating around here. They're going to start going for Turin's artillery, which he's kept a unit of Dwarf Warriors back here in support, and his Runesmith. But Leoncoeur's heading on over there as well. Let's get a little bit better bird's eye view here. I had definitely focused on those. I had been using Belagar and the Slayers to focus down those Grill Guardians that engaged him, some of the Boar Boys, and we can already see that it's starting to come to good fruition as they're already around half health, and Belagar is, I don't know, probably 95% health. Grill Guardians here on the flank as well. Definitely putting a lot of pressure on that unit of renown here. But we switched the Thunderers on over to shooting the Grill Guardians, which does an impressive amount of damage. But one thing to note here, the Thunderers are stacked up improperly, so they all can't shoot as one. So this is a good example of how not really to use Thunderers in this exact moment. I do adjust a little bit better throughout the fight, but since they're stacked up like this, both full units can't fight. They can only fire sparingly between the two. Let's see how this plays out. We got the Slayers have now completely routed the Orc boys, and the Thunderers are really starting to take a toll again on those Grill Guardians. Let's get back over here to the front line. The Black Orcs and the Foot Squires now stacking up on our Longbeards are starting to really do a toll on my front line. The Trolls, not as scary as you would originally have thought, but Turin's Longbeards are doing a good job of definitely keeping their front line stable while I kind of clean up mine. He's got some more warriors. His warriors of Dragonfire Pass coming in here to help maintain that line. You can see that his dwarf warriors that he held back definitely helped to keep his siege weapons about 50% in the game. You know, I mean, he did lose his cannons, but the Goblobber, which is arguably one of the best artillery pieces in the game, is still fighting hot and heavy. The Grill Guardians got a chance to surround my Runesmith here, which is never splendid, but I'm not too worried about it because Runesmiths are naturally pretty tanky. Or, I'm sorry, that's Turin's Runesmith. Mine's over there with the Slayers. But this is where it gets pretty fun because nothing's better than seeing a real good a Lord duel, and we had Belagar squaring off against Leon Kerr, who eventually flew away because that's just not a fight he's going to win. Let's see. Things at this point really weren't going too well either way. Both armies were seeing some pretty heavy losses. My Grumbling Guard just really kind of falling apart here, but still hanging in strong. I will say I probably should have focused down this Grail Relic a little bit sooner, and I definitely should have been using the Runesmith's abilities a little more often, more frequently. That would have helped me to really kind of even the odds here. But these Slayers are gonna help try and mulch up a little bit of this Black Orc presence, even though they're not really supposed to be doing that kind of work. But with the Grail Guardians now having completely fled away, I think they're over here somewhere. Who cares? They're somewhere, but they have fled away now because the Thunderers combined firepower with the Slayers helped to rout them. Turin brings in his Slayers to help out with some of the monstrous creatures over here. Definitely going to see that the battle's starting to take a turn here for our favor. It did not look that way. There's still a pretty massive group of Black Orcs that has clumped up, and at this point they're not going to be able to be utilized as properly, because now we can get in here and we can get some flanking on them, because now my line, quote unquote, what's left of it, has freed up. And this is where I noticed that my Thunderers were stacked, and I spread them into one line so they can all fire at once. See, this is where we start to really let them pour it on, as they say. Now the whole line will start really unloading on what's left of the Black Orcs over here. That's what I mean by all units can now fire. In the tabletop, you want to spread your firing units into as thin of a line as possible, so like rank of 2, because that way you're only measuring 2 ranks to fire into your opponent. And it's kind of the same way in this. If you keep your units in as small a rank as possible, they can utilize their range a little bit better, rather than their back flanks their back ranks delaying their firing. Leon Kerr just charged right on in here into Turin's Runesmith, but he also charged into like the thick of where Belagar is. We have Thorgrim on the side there, who's almost dead, and this was definitely kind of one of those actions to help save Thorgrim. But between Leon Kerr being shot by the Thunderers and Belagar being just pouring on the ass hammer and bring it down, bring it down! And there he goes. The mighty king hath fallen. Oh yeah, Belacqua. but a bloody ruin on the battlefield. We can see that things are really starting to go pretty awesome over here. The Black Orcs are getting sustained firepower from the Thunderers, and the Slayers have kind of helped neutralize some of those trolls. Speed this up a little bit here. Damsel's still in good working order. Look at her just kind of hobbling about, while the rest of her army's for the most part dead because that Grelrelic fell. We have the last bit of those trolls fleeing away, as I said. And this is where things kind of just have definitely swung in our favor by this point. The Slayer's coming back in to have that ass on them, their trolls. Those little naked creatures just scurrying about. Oh. Oh, God, look at those noses. Oh. There are probably boogers the size of fists in that thing. No, no, I don't want to die. Oh. This lonely orc shaman. For the most part, though, you know, as we've said, all that's left really is Grimgore here. But he's just going to charge into the thick of it. Turin's Runesmith kind of meeting one last glorious end. We have, we should have a Belegar coming in here somewhere. What's left of my army definitely charging into the fore to try and save that Runesmith who has just been felled. But that's how that army, that's how the Dwarves really played for me. It was definitely a very interesting setup to kind of see how they are a little more slow on the charge, I guess, quote-unquote, because they don't really have much of a charge bonus. They're better at taking the charge. Let's end the replay here and take a look at how all of our units did. So we can definitely see that the heroes of the day were those Slayers. They really chopped up a lot of the large resistance that they were getting. And the Thunderers did a really solid amount of damage. I'm going to assume that this 40 unit one was the one that was in the front of those two in the forest, preventing the back ones from firing as much. But again, you know, Belegar dealing some serious damage at 43 kills, and the Grumbling Guard, as always, holding its ground to the bitter end. Definitely can say again that I should have used the Runesmiths a little bit stronger in keeping my units better defended. I don't feel like I should have lost this many dwarves in this engagement, but at the same time, you know, it was definitely a clusterfuck in that one corner of the map where where Turn and I's armies met and their armies ran into, where it was pretty much just like this triangle. We should have wrapped around a little bit better. Turin's army brought a lot of Runesmiths, which I couldn't remember that. I didn't remember that he brought all three of these guys. But look at that Goblobber, just lobbing them gobs at 88 kills. So definitely did a heavy number of damage there. I'm going to assume that this is his Dwarf Warrior pack that was in the back, so it probably didn't get a lot of kills, but it probably did a really good job of mitigating a lot of the damage that was being dealt to these cannons. And at 41 kills, that's a solid investment right there in point-wise. And you can always see the Grumbling Guard holding the ground. Let's take a look at our opponent. Joker 5628, their Foot Squires did a heavy amount of damage. I mean, they brought the Grail Guardians, but to really no avail. At 10 and 3 kills, not worth the point investment, especially because they're using magic damage against dwarves. Didn't really do too well. Pegasus Knights were definitely mitigated very well by the Slayers, and again, I gotta hand it to the Foot Squires for doing their job and being anti-infantry and anti-armor there. Leon Carr did pretty damn well. You know, he did more damage than. By one, he did it more than one by Belegar, but the Bretonnia army definitely did a solid death toll here. Taking a look at the orcs, the orc boar boys really just didn't do a damn thing, especially the Goblin Wolf Chariot. I thought when I got that charge in the rear from the Grail Guardians and the boar boys that my Grumbling Guard, the Grumbling Guard were going to crumble, but they didn't. And I think that the combined firepower again and the Slayers jumping in really helped mitigate that damage. But their Black Orcs, as intended, did quite a heavy toll on us as well. 69, 60, 70, 76. And surprisingly enough, as much shit as I gave the Trolls early in the game, they did a considerable amount of damage at 67 and 63. But all in all, a great fight. Really enjoyed it. First time using Dwarves. Probably not going to be the last time. That was a lot of damn fun. But thanks for joining us, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll put a link to Turin's channel in the comments so you can take a look at his channel as well. He definitely has a lot more of the multiplayer and competitive aspects down, and a lot better unit descriptions than I do. I'm just kind of getting used to things, but as I go through, I get a lot better. But yeah, we've got some Lorehammer coming up this week and some other things, so don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.